Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashish Kutiala, for those of you just joining in. I am part of the marketing team at GitLab. It's my pleasure to introduce the four panelists here joining us in closing the SDLC loop panel discussion today. Philippe will be the moderator, and he will be leading the panel, correct? You look very surprised. No, Rob is. Okay, so that was correct. He should be surprised. So on my right here, I have Rob Mitchell, and then I have Hamiq Islam, I have Philippe, and we have another Philippe just to confuse you, so Philippe Arteau. And we have a great panel here today. There will be Q&A, so I would encourage all of you to ask questions. We'll have a mic runner, so if you could speak into the mic, then everybody can hear you. So please, Rob, go ahead.
So yes, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. So we've got 30 minutes today to talk about security in the software development lifecycle, which is one of those things that, if you remember from Sid's keynote, he was talking about the fact that cycle times are getting faster. Everyone's becoming a software company. Those sort of things create additional challenges for us to make sure that the code that's coming out and that we're delivering is effective, efficient, and secure. So as these cycles accelerate, there's additional friction that gets created between development teams, engineering teams, security teams, and at the same time, there's still that pressure to increase the cycles, make sure that all of those teams are able to work together and work together as efficiently as possible. So we've got a number of people from a variety of places here. I might just hand over to you guys and just do a quick introduction about who you are, the companies that you're representing, and I guess your exposure to the SDLC within your organization.
Hi everyone, I'm Philippe Arteau. I'm from GoSecure, Montreal, Canada. So GoSecure, as the name suggests, we're doing security, very surprising. So one of the things I do is maintaining a static analysis tool called Find Security Bugs. And it's integrated as part of GitLab rule. So it's not the only tool integrated, but it's one of the tools. So if you want later to talk to me about potential rules that are not yet implemented in the rule set from GitLab, let me know. It's a tool that covers Java and Kotlin mainly. So if you're in the Java ecosystem, it would be nice to chat with you after the talk.
Hi everyone, I'm Philippe Lafoucrière. To confuse even more you, I'm coming from Canada as well. I'm a distinguished engineer in a not so small startup called GitLab, where I work for the secure team, which is the team responsible for creating and maintaining all the security features for GitLab. I joined that company something like 18 months ago with the acquisition of Gymnasium when I was the CEO. So that's actually when GitLab started to have some security features.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hamiq. I run the application, infrastructure, and cloud security teams at Coinbase. So as far as SDLC is concerned, my team is responsible for building and driving that program across our infrastructure.
Fantastic. So, I mean, we're all involved actively in that sort of development process, but we're also very much seen as the people that are responsible for keeping that security happening within that process. But we're just one stakeholder in that whole thing. And I guess the traditional view of security in the life cycle has always been one of those things that happens at the end. And I guess the primary theme that we're talking about here is this notion of being able to shift that left. So I might just come back to you, Hamiq, and talk about some of the things that you've been able to take on within Coinbase to actively get engagement from the development teams and to actively motivate the stakeholders that are involved within that whole development lifecycle to make security like a core part of what they do.
Yeah, so one of the realizations we had early was that security as a check or a gate right before launch was actually pretty disempowering to our engineering teams. It felt like what we were doing was slowing them down, stopping them, and not necessarily providing them the tools and information for them to help themselves do better. So what we did was we just flipped the script altogether. We said, hey, there's very little mandated security check as part of the deploy lifecycle. What we're going to do is just talk to us well before you are writing code, well before you're even like thinking about what you want to write code. We invested super heavily in developer onboarding, developer training. The first like week that you're at the company, here's how we think about security. Here are the things and tools that you have. The first month is here's our training, here's our dev philosophy, like what we believe in terms of ownership and accountability. We're working with craftspeople and tradesmen. Like you are good at what you do, here's how we expect you to execute against that vision and mission. We gave them those like kind of fundamentals of, I work at a crypto exchange. There are two things that end crypto exchanges is we lose all the user data or we lose all the users' money, right? And if you're well empowered to understand that, hey, these are the two core things I need to worry about whenever I'm writing code, it makes your life a lot easier. By the time we actually came to code review, my engineers complained, like on the security team that we looked at this, they had this initial spec, they cut all of the like fluff out of the pipeline in the process and just have this tiny little API that has 3 interfaces and no security footprint. I'm like, that sounds great. That's like an absolute success. We hit the objective that we wanted to hit as a company. We didn't have to worry about how much like other stuff was going on inside of it.
Awesome. Philippe, GitLab as a company, we work very, very quickly. You know, we're well known for having monthly release cycles, and we've hit that target for I think about 100 releases now, or something like that. But I mean, we have to be very, very concerned not only about the product that we're releasing, but about the impact that has upon our customers. So, I mean, Philippe, how about reflecting a little bit about how some of the things that we do inside of GitLab to make sure that we can hit those monthly targets, but also build in security into the way that we do our development process on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, at GitLab, we love dogfooding, or as I like to say, drink our own champagne. So we have a lot of security features that we provide at GitLab, and the feedback that we get from the security team inside GitLab is essential for us. It's a great way to see the gasp, the pain points, and everything that could slow down the process. We are seeing that a lot. That's the kind of feedback that we get from the development team. As soon as we start including security in the process, we are slowing down. But it's not exactly that, because if we compare the time that we spend doing security early in the process with the time that we spend doing security later in the process, it's nothing comparable. Fixing a bug in production, for example, costs us something like 30 times the money if we fix that bug early in the process in development. So for that, we have a 2-phase process in GitLab. We have something at the merge request where we make sure that we don't make the situation worse than it is. We prevent the developers from adding new vulnerabilities to the projects that we develop. And at the same time, we have the security team involved in the second step, where they have the whole list of vulnerabilities, and they go through this list, not one by one, but they have a triage process, and they use that to prioritize with all the other vulnerabilities that we might have with bug bounty programs, for example, like HackerOne. So it's working great for us, but obviously we have some pain points that we still need to fix, or at least to make the process a bit smoother.
Yeah, Philippe, if I can pile on that, one of the tools that we also used was the security team for the code that we write. We use the most rigorous set of controls that we've ever kind of given out to any other engineering team. So we just said, you know what, we're going to hold ourselves to the highest standard bar and see how tenable is that in terms of operationally, like the work that we need to do day in, day out. Made very quick learnings with regard to how hard some of the recommendations we were making were. And just tweaked that with regard to what outcomes we wanted and what do we actually need to do. So in one instance, we have like consensus requirements. We need at least 2 additional required reviews from particular reviewers before code can hit production. We found that 2 was like this magic number where when we said 3 or 4 for some of the very sensitive orgs, they were just getting stamps from random people, right? Like somebody who didn't understand what was going on but wanted to keep the process moving. Even in security, we just hit 2, anyone else that was adding on had just no context. They said, yeah, I'm basically validating that the other 2 did do their review.
Fantastic. So Philippe, the other Philippe. When we were talking previously, you mentioned that within your organization, you developed a program of cultivating security champions and using them to sort of become role models within the organization. Can you talk a little bit about how that was an effective program for you in the areas where you've been working?
Okay, I never started a program with Security Champion, but I can talk about it. Security Champion, because I've basically helped introduce CI in a couple of organizations to have security check added to the builds and implement the process around it. Security Champion, it's a concept where basically you will elect somebody that is motivated in security and will become the expert for the team, because not everybody has the knowledge. Security is one of the skills you can have in development. You can be good at performance, you can be good at code quality, at testing, and security is another expertise. So it's not an expertise that everybody has, and it's something that is need experience. So if you can have somebody that will be trained or has already knowledge, you can have one person per team that will be the resource. So the idea is that when there's a potential issue that arise in the build, then if somebody doesn't understand the issue and is not able to do a proper assessment of it, they can go to the security champion. The security champion also allow you to train specific people in your organization rather than training all your developers for security. Since they don't have the same background, it might be harder to train somebody into security if they are junior developers. So it's one way to be more effective at covering all aspects of development and covering security.
Fantastic. So, I mean, there's a variety of techniques and a variety of challenges. What I find interesting about what all of you have said is that the challenges that most of you are talking about are not really technical. The technology and the tools for us to be able to do the whole shift left process, I mean, that's just another thing that we can check at various stages within the life cycle. But what's consistent between what all of you have been talking about is that really it comes down to people and processes a lot of the time to actually really, institute change and institute some success. So I might go back again to you, Philippe. You talked about the champions model. Can you talk to maybe some specific examples where being able to put, some of these changes into place has actually made a real difference, either from a commercial perspective or from an agility and a pace of change perspective?
So I think it can help all kind of organizations to introduce CI. I've seen it implement at really agile team at already everything in place and just need the security process to add security code review. And I've seen it also in a major bank where they add large legacy application. And in their case, for large legacy application, it could be used, for example, just for the context of keeping a state of how much of this debt is being reduced. So, basically, as a story, I think if you can just have a vision of what are the current state of your vulnerability in your application, it's already a good step in the first direction. If you can have difference of what are the new vulnerability introduced in your application, then you're way ahead and you're shifting left to plug the buzzword. I need it. Check. Okay. So maybe I could do a small parenthesis regarding to shifting left. For a lot of people in security teams, shifting left means pushing basically tasks on the developer side. So perfect. So we don't need to do security code review. It's going to be in the pipeline for developers. But I think security team need to be really conscious and aware that they need to reduce the workload for developers. So it's not just pushing all the load to developers. It's pushing rule set that have the minimum false positive possible. And also, security teams need to be proactive and code review critical application from their organization actively without the need of a developer asking a question for a code review. So this way, it's a combination of both developers doing their due diligence for new feature to do their code review. But if the security teams can proactively scan application, this, I think, it's a good combination because often a rule set will not cover everything, and they will not have the same expertise, obviously, as the security team.
Yeah, I have something to add on to that. Is one powerful bit that we found was the security team itself spent a lot of time developing the initial threat models, like what can go wrong, what are we roughly worried about, and where have we seen failure in particular areas. Then we went and trained like the broader engineering team that was working in that area against that threat model and said, here are all the different places we've seen failure or the types of failures that can happen. So what didn't immediately happen was like the developers didn't immediately start writing better code the first time around, right? Like we still saw some of those failures, but the pure code reviewers within the eng team, before it ever got to security to ever talk about it, like started flagging and identifying that, hey, that's a vulnerable pattern, like this is this other failure. So it was more kind of sharing back that information about things that do go wrong so that as a mass, like multiple people can pile in, remember a piece of it, and then say, hey, but what about this? Oh, but what about this over here? So in one case, we had software that like failed open in like a business logic piece, like our whole lifecycle just ended up with, and if everything else fails, just go ahead and send them the money. I was like, well, that's a really bad way for some business logic to work if you're trying to not send arbitrary people arbitrary amounts of money. Just that like highlighting the fact that, hey, your loops cannot fail open. We didn't catch that through code automation because all the different ways Ruby lets you fail open is kind of ridiculous. But we could catch that through just developers reading it and saying, wait, do we have test cases that test like all of the terminal states?
Yeah, and that brings up a really interesting point about testing in that being able to, I mean, shifting left doesn't just necessarily mean that you're putting the development process and the security, the review processes is at the start. It also means that you also have to think about where you're going to be putting your test cases as well. Philippe, that's probably a nice point to pivot to you to talk about some of the things that we do within the GitLab, particularly within the secure product, to make those things happen.
Yeah, so let me tell you a very quick story. Security is a journey. There's no way you will be secure tomorrow if you decide to be secure today. You need a roadmap. You need to go step by step. I think we're pretty good at GitLab to do iteration. So we start small and we evaluate where we are and we decide if the direction is still right, and then we continue that path or we change the direction. We started in 2017, really the hard way. At some point, thank you. So we started in 2017, really the hard way, where at that point, I guess we were doing some hype-driven developments. We've heard that blocking the pipeline would be cool because everybody was doing that at that time. So we wanted to also block our pipeline. So we started to include some security checks directly in the GitLab CE and GitLab EE pipeline, which is our main product. So imagine that all our engineers are working on this code base, on these projects. And it was working very fine, actually. It was green. But suddenly, it became red, because one day we discovered a new vulnerability, a new adversary, and suddenly our project was affected by this vulnerability, by this adversary. And suddenly all the pipelines went red. So that means basically we blocked the whole company from pushing anything else to production. It was even worse than that because all the branches that were pending, they were also red. So that means for all the developers, they were not able to tell if they broke something, actually, or if it was coming from a test from the outside. And in this case, until they were able to fix that vulnerability in the pipeline, everything was blocked. So we were blocking the whole company, and we rolled back. That changed pretty quickly, so that's when we decided to never block the pipeline again. It's part of our security paradigm now. We have some workarounds. We don't block the pipeline now, but we block the merge request. That's something very different. And we are still learning. We are learning from our own experience. We are learning from our customers, and I would like to thank them for being there today. That's a great feedback, being able to understand what are the pain points and how we can help you in that process. So we are tuning and tweaking our tools and services so that it would be easier to use, so that it would be faster and less in the way.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like, I vaguely remember when everything went crazy red, and that was not a fun time. Everyone's pointing at us saying, hey, what did we do? So, I mean, between the three of us, I mean, we've all, had a fair amount of maturity and had a fair amount of success in starting to incorporate sort of security all the way through that whole lifecycle process. But I imagine there's probably a lot of people in the room here who are still fighting legacy code, still fighting getting to move towards that sort of more agile DevOps environment, being able to have this battle with shifting left within their own organizations. I definitely want to get some questions from the field out here. But before we do that, I kind of wanted to go to each of you and say, what would be your one piece of advice that you would give based on things you've learned that made the most difference in, I guess, making that process as successful as possible?
Yeah, we spent a heavy amount of time before working with any engineering team aligning on what desired outcomes were. So it's like, what do you actually want out of the security engagement, but also what is your product or feature area you're trying to do? Like, what does success look like here? It made just much more relevant feedback available, just we knew what was acceptable and what was not acceptable.
Awesome. Philippe?
I would advise to start small, step by step. Do not try to implement everything at once. Security is often seen as a wall, like I'm secure or insecure and there is nothing in the middle. It's absolutely not true. You can start with just automating security in one project, then two, then three, then all your project with just one domain, for example, SaaS, and then you move forward. You start something else like that, and by the time you will improve your security cover, and automating is also the key. So if you have a process that is not automated, it's not going to scale. So start with automation. That's a no-brainer for that.
And my advice would be, don't forget training. So as you add new tools to the pipeline, especially for security analysis, you need to make sure that your developer will be able to properly analyze issue. So having a small training, ideally, if you can do a scan of your application, get an idea of what is common, and train specifically your developers to make sure that they will not be stuck at what is this report so we don't understand. So vulnerability can be really complex. Sometimes they are pretty obvious, but yeah. So don't forget training. That would be my advice.
Fantastic. Thank you to all three of you. I think that you've all given some great insights here. I wanted to open it up to the floor. We've got about 8 or 9 minutes left here for any questions that you might have for any of us on the panel about any of the things that we've set up here today.
Swag will be given to any question.
There is swag.
Hey guys, thanks for the panel discussion. My question is that all of you, or most of you, have said, don't do this all at once, don't just jump right in with everything and stop your dev process. What is the first step?
What is the first step?
I would say threat modeling. So if you're at organization level, try to see what are the most critical application, and now see what you can add to your SDLC for those application.
I would definitely agree on that. Every user-facing application is definitely the best place to start. This is what the hackers are going to see. So everything, and I've seen that in the past with some customers that are trying to do everything at once, but really the hackers are going to see the user-facing applications first. So you want to secure your APIs, your web services, and all the websites that are lying there, and focus on everything that is background afterwards. That's a great point.
Yeah, so if you think about it program-wise, in terms of I'm trying to build a security program here, I'd focus almost directly on the engineers or kind of the product managers. It's first line. Who are people pushing things that are new or changing, or who are like actually doing the work? And the goal here is entirely education, right? Like who am I? What do we care about? Why is the organization spending money and time on this? Like how can we make this succeed together?
Yeah, I think one of you made a point that from an economic perspective, there's a massive difference between fixing a security issue at the tail end of the development cycle as opposed to the starting of the development cycle. So as far as getting sponsorship and support, making that case and making people realize that the earlier we get security involved and the earlier we actually get the development community to be active participants within security, it's not just about, risks and vulnerabilities. There's actually, efficiencies and, agility that can be driven through this. One of the strategies we've also used in GitLab is to not always talk about the security question around risk, but talk about it in the language that the teams that we're trying to work with understand and appreciate. So to turn the message around to say, we're not going to talk about risks and vulnerabilities. We're going to talk about, efficiency, or we're going to talk about speed of commits. We're going to talk about, as Sid said this morning, speeding up that business cycle and using that language as an effective way of getting that buy-in.
So from a security vendor perspective, what would be the one advice you would give to a security vendor that would like to engage with you guys in the application security process?
I didn't hear the question. Can you repeat? Or?
Just the one advice if you were to give one advice for a security vendor that is trying to push a product or to change something in your organization, what would it be? What do you don't like from a security vendor? What do you like from a security vendor?
Yeah, spend a lot of time with your internal stakeholder, or kind of the people you've identified, figuring out what the actual core problem is. I get probably to the order of 15 to 20 messages a week from vendors trying to sell me a thing that they think I might care about, but it's never a matter of like, here's what we offer, where are you at programmatically, kind of what do you actually need next.
Maybe the one advice I could give you is often it's not that a tool is not good enough that the organization will not choose a specific vendor, but it doesn't integrate well with the process. So if they use a specific tool or a specific system and it doesn't integrate with the way they work, then it would be critical. So sometimes the vendor has a process in mind, but you'll encounter different organization and different process every time. So.
I would like to add some color on this, if you don't mind, because I have a very strong opinion actually on that topic. I think that the tools that you will use or that you are using today, they don't really matter. They all provide data. And in the end, they will provide so much data that you will not be able to deal with all these findings. So the difference with a good tool and the tool that is good enough is probably that with the tool that is good enough, you will have 300 findings, while with something commercial, you will have 500. There's no way you can deal with 500 or 300 anyway. So the most critical findings are going to be the same. So in the end, it's not really about the tools themselves, but what you are going to do with the data. It's the key is there. If you have some findings, then what? Where do you start with that? Do you send that to your security team? Do you send that to your development team? That's the questions that you need to start asking. If you don't have a security team, how can you educate your developers to start dealing with security issues? How can they remediate that instead of waiting that someone is telling you in a bug report, oh, you did something wrong, you introduced a new dependency, and guess what? It's on production, and you need to fix that right away.
Yeah, and sometimes that can come down to thinking about things like what the user experience is. And particularly with security products, there's a lot of focus on what the technology does, but not necessarily not enough focus on what it is that you're actually asking the person to do when you deliver a result to them. So, I mean, one of the things that's really nice in GitLab's examples, for example, we not only do we provide, sort of an answer as far as what the vulnerabilities are, but we also provide, a path to mitigation. So, the call to action and the idea about what needs to be done next is relatively clear. So being able to tell that sort of a story is something that, I find that actually gets an awful lot of traction.
Yeah, hi. It's a question for both the gentlemen from GitLab. You mentioned something about your pipelines going red. I'm not sure when this was. Can you provide a little color on what happened and what was the action that you took?
So if I understand well your question, you want to understand what did we do when the pipeline went red?
Yeah, I mean, like you had a situation where every pipeline, because of some vulnerability, went red.
Yeah, so the first reaction was to freak out because we were not able to do anything in the company. So the whole engineering was blocked, and that's absolutely not what you want. So the first thing that we did was to disable the job so that we can investigate how to do that better. We do a lot of retrospectives at GitLab for basically everything. Every time we have a new iteration, we do a retrospective of what went well in the last one, what went wrong, and what we can improve. That was part of the retrospective. We knew that we had to integrate security at some point, but we needed a smarter way to do that. So the way we are doing security now is a bit different. We have adapted and improved our security paradigm so that in our merge request now we are displaying only the differences between the current report and the branching commit, so that we display only the findings that would be introduced by the change that we want to merge. And that's the huge difference. Instead of having 300 findings in the merge request, we have 1, 2, maybe 3 findings, and we take care of these findings right in the merge request. And so I said that we don't block the pipeline, but we block the merge request instead, and that's the big difference. It's a game changer because we prevent the merge request from being merged at that point if we have, for example, findings that would be high or critical. We ask the developers either to fix the vulnerabilities that they will introduce, or we ask the security team for an exception. But it's very rare. We only have a few cases when we need to explain to the security team, okay, that's a false positive. We need to dismiss this one, and it's safe to merge. But in this case, we involved the security team, and we should avoid doing that too often because they are so small compared to the number of engineers that we have at GitLab. So their time is very valuable. So we really want to involve them when it's really necessary, and that's what we do with this process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. We might have time for one more question.
Curious what sort of metrics you use to measure the, whether the security is being improved, whether it's through CI/CD or your regression testing. Like, what are you using to measure your improvement?
Yeah, I was actually talking about this earlier when we were discussing. We look at one kind of expectation of workload coming out of different engineering teams to get an idea of globally how much engineering product is there being pushed. And then we correlate that against like engagement in our pipeline. What teams are giving us like architectures they want us to look at, where are we seeing code review requests and whatnot. Overall, the expectation is, hey, security is going to do its own good job, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable internally for a high-quality security product. The rest of it is how good are we, or how good is the rest of the company working with us. If engagement is starting to go up, like we're doing positive things, we're generating the right amount of attention, we're talking to the right sets of people. If engagement is going down, double check that code output is not also going down. If it's not going down, then hey, there's something missing about how people are writing and shipping code that we're just not picking up anymore.
Fantastic. I'd like to thank Philippe and Hamiq. For their time today, and we're probably going to be hanging around here for another 10 minutes or so. So if any of you do want to come up and approach us and ask us any extra questions, thank you for your time.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.